But we're going to talk about the One Piece bounty system here because it's not always talked about in the show in a very straightforward way. We know there are bounties, and we know that bounties exist, but we don't necessarily know what is the driving force behind raising bounties. Okay? Don't really know the driving force behind that. I have a theory that might have it figured out. A little bit. Maybe. Just maybe. So, there's bounties, and what I want to do is kind of go through them. So, let me put this at a mile high kind of eagle eye view of bounties in One Piece. Bounties in One Piece are a system that establish some form of threat of, criminals, right? Pirates, revolutionaries, so forth and so on. Now, here's the kicker. We don't know what exactly that threat entails. We don't know who that threat is against. We just know that the Marines are the military arm to enforce that. All right, the thunder. There's lightning going on, a lot of lightning going on. So anyway, the Marines are the enforcement structure of these bounties in One Piece. Now, I'm going to tell you what my theory is on these bounties. So these bounties are not directed at a person's threat. It's not directed at a person's relative strength. It's not a measure of strength. Bounties in One Piece are more so a measure of someone's threat to the world government higher class, the world government's higher structure. So that would be like, basically the bounties are what is someone's individual, and individual is the important thing, what is someone's individual threat level to, say, the Five Elders, or to the Celestial Dragons in Maurijois. Someone at the door. There's someone at the door. That is okay. So, that is the gist of it. It is someone's threat to government power. That is the crux of the bounty system. So, what I want to go through here is the rise of Luffy's bounty, and I want to talk about that in what it means in relation to bounties being a threat to government power, government structure. So, when Luffy first jumps onto the scene after Arlong Park, he has a bounty of 30 million berries, which is no laughing matter. Essentially, Luffy had become he had become the strongest pirate in the East Blue. So that gives him a bounty of 30 million berries. That's pretty good. So, then what happens? All right. After Alabasta, he takes down Crocodile, who's a warlord, and gains a new bounty of 100 million berries, making him, right here it says, a super rookie. All right, he's one of those rookies with over 100 million berry bounty. And here is the thing. that bounty keeps going up because he keeps taking people on. So if you think about it like this, right? He takes down Arlong, who is working with a Marine, and the reason that his bounty goes up from after Arlong Park is because essentially he slighted a Marine, right? Luffy slighted a Marine. That poses a direct threat to the world government power structure, the Marines. Now then, his bounty goes up after taking down a warlord. All right, he fights against Crocodile in Alabasta, and it goes up to 100 million berries. He takes down one of the 7 warlords, which are one of the 3 powers, right? Our 3 powers are warlords, our emperors, and our marines, our admirals, right? So he takes down someone of those 3 powers. And so that increases because he has now posed a direct threat to government structure. All right, but as I'm going to show you in a minute here, when we're going to look at a bounty from Captain Eustace Kidd, the bounty system is twofold, right? The bounty system is developed so that people can go to it, people can look at it, and the civilians will think that the bounties are there to protect civilians, that bounties are there to establish civilian protection. But that's only part of it. That's just when things like that happen, right? Kidd goes into Sabaody with a bounty of over 300 million because he attacked civilians. And so the world government has to increase that bounty, make that bounty high to make it appear that bounties are there, bounties are in place to protect civilians. But that's not really the case. So then what happens is Luffy goes into Enies lobby. So Luffy goes into Enies lobby, survives a Buster Call, and snags Nico Robin. Well, all that happened was we found that, CP9, albeit very powerful, what we found out was that our leader of CP9 was wildly incompetent in this. And so it's not even necessarily some big feat from Luffy and the Straw Hats, though it is. It's really just that he has now gone against the world government, so his bounty increases to 300 million. But here's the thing. Your bounty increases in direct proportion to how close you are to obtaining the One Piece and ultimately essentially sharing all of the information of the Void Century. That's how your bounty goes up. The closer you are to unraveling the mysteries of the Void Century, the higher your bounty will be. So, if we go here, watch this, all right? We don't know what Rayleigh's bounty is. That's unknown. But guess what? I can almost guarantee you it's high 5. It is high 5 billions. So if we see Gold Roger, King of the Pirates, his bounty of 5.5 billion berries. That's because this man was the closest anyone had ever come to revealing the secrets of the Void Century and ultimately exposing the world government as tyrannical and bad, stripping them of power. And that's how the bounties are actually established. So our King of the Pirates was the closest to that. Dark King, Silver's Rayleigh, we don't know what his bounty was. But it's probably somewhere very high to it. And if I had to guess, probably similar to the bounty of our favorite, I'm going to scroll up for you, of one of our favorite war emperors, Whitebeard, Edward Newgate, with a 5 billion berry bounty. I wouldn't be surprised if Rayleigh's bounty was higher than Whitebeard's. Because again, this bounty system is based off of how close you are to revealing the mysteries of the Void Century and exposing the world government. Whitebeard was very close, just behind Roger. But Roger's second-hand man had the answers, knew the information. And if he were to let that get out, that would be catastrophic. So, now, going back up to everyone's favorite Rubber Man. After escaping Impel Down, War of the Best, Summit War, whatever, he gets a 400 million berry bounty. And guess the reasoning behind that is because even though he survived the war, he still let Ace die. He didn't really achieve what he was there to do. All he did was stir up some ruckus. He was no closer. I'm not going to say no closer, but he wasn't much closer to revealing anything about the Void Century and anything about the world government than he was before the war. So, then, when Luffy goes, post-time skip, he's been off the radar. Once he goes up against the Don Quixote family pirates, after that, his bounty is raised to 500 million. 500 million because here, again, he hasn't necessarily taken any action against the world government per se, but what he did do was take an action against Doflamingo, who, I gotta double check this. I can't remember if Doflamingo has a bounty. Regardless, I think his bounty was somewhere like 300 million. I don't really know, but it was frozen. We have to remember that all of our warlords had frozen bounties. But Doflamingo, who had pieces of information that would expose the world government, his bounty increases 100 million. But here's the thing. At this point, we know that Luffy is still only relative to warlords. So, then what happens? Right? If Luffy's only relative to warlords, his bounty is now 500 million. That's no laughing matter, sure. But he's only relative to warlords. The admirals could take him down at any point. So then what happens? I'll tell you what happens. Whole Cake Island happens. And Monkey D. Luffy and some of the Straw Hat Pirates go and rescue one of their crewmates. Rescue from who? None other than an Emperor of the Sea. Goes in, takes down the first commander of an emperor, and escapes the wrath, escapes the territory of an emperor. Now what do we know? Well, now we know that Monkey D. Luffy is not necessarily equal to, but is relative to an Emperor of the Sea. All right? We know that he can at least engage with an Emperor of the Sea. Right? And what else? What's more is that going to Whole Cake Island, going up against Big Mom, we now know that Monkey D. Luffy very well might have knowledge of or even worse, access to several more poneglyphs that, guess what? His crew is the only crew in the entire world that can use and read. So then what happens? Bounty spikes up 1 billion berries. That's because he's no laughing matter at this point. You can't ignore him now. And that's why Morgan's, right, Big News calls him the 5th Emperor of the Sea. Because we know he's now relative to Emperor status, but moreover and more importantly, he has access to and the ability to unlock the knowledge that would reveal the Void Century and send the world government into a turmoil and spin it out and relinquish them of all their power. That's why his bounty goes up. Now, what's going to probably happen is, first, I'm going to show you this. So, let's go to our bounties for the first thing I want to point out here that's going to support this is our bounty for Nico Robin. All right? Because what this is bounties are all about an individual's threat, okay? So, in my personal opinion, I think that the bounties of Nico Robin and Olvia Robin, Nico Olvia, said that wrong, right? And Nico Olvia are really just stand-in bounties. Because the last thing that the world government wants to do is draw too much attention to these specific people. Because guess what? If the Robin family, right, if the scholars of Ohara have bounties that are way higher than anyone else, that sends a clear message to civilians. Oh, why are the bounties on knowledge, on archaeologists, why are those bounties so high? No, they have to keep it lower. They have to keep those bounties artificially lower to make people think that knowledge isn't the most important part. Right? Nico Robin's bounty when she is a kid is 79 million berries, which is a huge bounty because of the knowledge she has. After Eni's Lobby, it goes up to 80 million. And the reason they artificially keep it low is just that, so that no one can come in and suspect that we're just targeting this specific knowledge, specifically of the poneglyphs. Then, after their run-in with Doflamingo, it goes up, right? And it can start increasing. So, Nico Robin is going around with the Straw Hats. Her bounty can start increasing. The world government can start justifying increases in her bounty because of her actions with the Straw Hat Pirates. Again, let me make this clear. Nico Robin's being a Straw Hat Pirate is what makes Luffy's bounty so high. Luffy's bounty is so high because he is the only person in the world with a crew member that can read the poneglyphs and expose the entirety of the Void Century. All right? So, here's what I'm going to show you here. All right? Going down, obviously, we have warlords with, weird-looking bounties. They're, relatively low because those bounties are frozen. Right? Kuma's bounty is frozen at just under 300 million. Boa Hancock's bounty is 80 million. So it's really just these weird things. Buggy's bounty, 15 million. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know what to make of that. I'm not gonna lie. It's just a bounty. So Trafalgar Law, 500 million. Yeah, whatever. So where I'm trying to get here is is our emperors. So our emperors of the sea, starting with Red Hair Shanks. So Red Hair Shanks has a bounty of 4 billion. All right, 4 billion berry bounty. Remember that because it's important. Big Mom has a 4.388 billion berry bounty. That's pretty high. That's higher than Shanks. Now, a lot of people might say that Shanks is probably stronger than Big Mom. I don't know that we necessarily know that, but here's why it's important to remember it and think about it, and we'll get back to it. All right? Because Kaido, King of the Beasts, has a 4.6 billion berry bounty. 4.6. Kaido and Big Mom are pretty strong, sure. And then Blackbeard has a 2.2 billion berry bounty. Now, here's the thing. Why does Blackbeard have a lower bounty? Is Blackbeard weaker than the other emperors? Or maybe it's just that he hasn't been around long? No. Blackbeard, even though he is a member of the Will of D, he doesn't necessarily pose a threat to the world government. Blackbeard has never once showed an inkling of getting to the One Piece. That's not his goal, right? Make no mistake. Blackbeard's goal is not to get to the One Piece. It is not. All right? Now, if we remember those bounties, who had the lowest? That's right. Red-haired Shanks has the lowest bounty of the 4 emperors, despite him being one of the stronger emperors some people might assume, and despite him having been on Goldie Roger's crew. Interesting here. So why is his bounty lower than everyone's? It's simple. It's because of his relative threat to exposing the Void Century and turning the world government to turmoil. Because that's what it is. The closer you get towards discovering the One Piece and towards exposing the Void Century, the more direct threat you pose to the world government and the higher your bounty is. But guess who Shanks is allowed to meet with? Yes, the 5 elders. Shanks is pretty much buddy-buddy, from what we understand, buddy-buddy, with the 5 elders. That's why he's got a lower bounty. Because they trust him. Sure, he could turn on them. But they trust him enough that he has the lowest bounty of the 4 emperors. Excluding Blackbeard. But if we put Whitebeard in, Whitebeard, who had a 5.088 bounty, billion berry bounty, Shanks has the lowest of the 4 emperors. And it's because his threat level is assessed by higher ups in the world government. And they say, no, we don't think he's going to expose us. So, in recap, the bounty system is essentially geared toward your relative threat to exposing the world government and exposing the Void Century. Because exposing that Void Century is what will turn the world upside down, literally. Right? Sets a new dawn. We keep talking about the new dawn in One Piece, and that's what it is. Exposing the Void Century will set a new dawn. The bounty system is so cool. It has multiple tiers of layers to it. Because it's this thing where civilians are looking at it and say, okay, the higher someone's bounty is, the more I want to stay away from them. But that's just a trick. That's just a trick. No, the higher someone's bounty is, actually, the more you want to be their friends, realistically, right? The higher someone's bounty is, the more threat they pose to the world government, who oppresses people like the fishmen. All right? It's a crazy, crazy system. So, here are my predictions. All right? I have a little bit of a prediction for what bounties will look like at the end of Wano. So, realistically, I think Luffy's at the end of Wano. I have not read the manga. I do not know how Wano will end. But at the end of Wano, I think we will see Luffy's bounty increase into the 3 to 4 billion territory. Because having come that far, he will now potentially have access to three, I can't remember, I think 3 road poneglyphs, a plethora of other poneglyphs, maybe just 2 road poneglyphs, I don't remember. No, 3 because he was on Zou. 3 road poneglyphs, multiple others, and he will have potentially taken down an Emperor of the Sea. So we'll probably be in at least the 3 to 4 billion territory for Luffy's bounty post Wano. Because he will then be, it could go even higher. Honestly, it could go even higher. His bounty, depending on how Wano ends, right? In theory, if Big Mom and Kaido were to fall, Luffy's bounty would easily approach the 4.5, would probably start to approach the 5 billion territory. Because this man would single-handedly be the closest person to getting to the One Piece and to exposing the entire Void Century, which would send the world government into absolute shambles. We're looking at least 3 to 4 billion for Luffy post Wano. Zoro, again, with crewmates, it's a lot different. Zoro will have some kind of feats, maybe. I don't really know. Not that important. Whatever. His bounty will probably increase. If Luffy's goes up to that 3 to 4 billion mark, it might go reasonably. Zoro might get to he might start to approach that 1 billion mark that we see, commanders for Emperor's crews get to. And so I think that's the same with Sanji. Usopp's bounty is honestly a meme, but, he'll probably have, his bounty will probably increase to 500 maybe. Nami might get up into the 300-ish territory. Unsure, really. Chopper, the pets might increase to 500? 500 berries? Maybe? I'm going to get back to Nico Robin's because I think Luffy and Robin's bounties are the important ones to watch here. Now, after Wano, I think Frankie will have also a pretty high bounty here. I think Frankie's will probably get into the 300-ish territory. It just kind of depends on what else happens in Wano. If there's some kind of information that he can get that makes Frankie approach that Dr. Vegapunk intellect type, invention type area, Frankie could easily start to exceed that, 500, 600, 700 berry mark. Brook is probably in the same boat as Frankie, could go anywhere from like 3 to 5, maybe even higher. Jinbei, after Wano, Jinbei's will also probably increase. Again, he had his, it was his bounties frozen because he's a warlord, whatever. Once he was not a warlord anymore, it was put at this 4.38 mark. Jinbei's will probably increase, probably like 700, 800, you never really know. Now, depending on where everyone else's bounties get post Wano, I think this is what's interesting. I think depending on what the other bounties in the Straw Hats look like, the world government will use that as an excuse to increase Robin's bounty. For all we know, Big News Morgan could simply put out a news story that says something that maybe hypes up Robin's role in the raid on Onigashima. And that could give the world government some kind of justification outside of just her knowledge to increase her bounty to, I want to say, in my opinion, I think what the world government wants to do post Wano, after Nico Robin will have had access to 3 road poneglyphs and know almost exactly where to go. They just need a 4th. They will know almost exactly where to go. Nico Robin's bounty could start to approach anywhere in the 1 to 2 billion range. I really think that. I think we're going to see a massive spike in Robin's bounty. It's going to be astronomical because the world government has been looking for an excuse to increase bounty on people with knowledge who they still think will be a threat to them. So that's my predictions for post-Wano bounties based off of the truth of the bounty system.